Names like Batman, Superman, Captain America have brand recognition worldwide. Doesn't matter what country you go to, chances are people have heard about these characters. But if you name drop Nezuko Kamado, very unlikely that Romanians would know who she is. And yet, Demon Slayer manga managed to outsell the entire Western comic book industry. It's astonishing. It's a miracle how people manage to take an industry that has such strong brand recognition and bring it to its knees. And the reason for this is that the comic book industry, much like most of the entertainment industry in the West, has been infested by a cancer. People that do not care about comic books anymore, people who use comic books as a vector in order to further their personal prestige. And these people often despise and hate the people who consume comic books. They hate their core audience. These people, if they could, would ban 99% of the comic book readers as long as the correct and the righteous comic book readers are left. They're not treating the comic book industry as a business. They are treating the comic book industry as a commune, as a place to make friends and relationships. I mean, let's take the difference. There used to be a lady who worked in the comic book industry back in the day. She gave a TED talk. Unfortunately, I'm not very familiar with names, but if anyone knows who she is, like, please put her link into the description, into the comments, and I'll pin it. But she explains how she was one of the first women to work in the comic book industry. And she had to do a lot of research in order to get there, study the lore of superheroes, understand previous stories. And once she got into the comic book industry, she tried really hard to understand what is the essence of a comic book. What is the thing that gets that product off the shelves? And she found out that the essence of comics, the thing which makes a comic book, the aspect without which you wouldn't have the same product, it comes down to a fist fight between a superhero and a villain. Every single comic book needs to have this. Whether it is Batman fighting Joker, whether it is Superman fighting against Doomsday, it requires to have a fist fight in it for it to be successful. So what this lady did is she went in and trained into kickboxing because she wanted to know how it's like getting kicked. She wanted to know how it's like to punch someone. She wanted to understand the physics of punching something so that she can use that experience in order to write better comic books. And that is the mentality of the previous generation of comic book writers. That is how much they sweated literal blood and tears in order to give you a product that is amazing and to convince you to part with your hard-earned money so that they can sell a product. Fast forward to today, that's not the case anymore. The people who are being hired in the comic book industry and allowed to work on remarkable titles such as Captain America don't even have a history of liking comic books, don't even have a history of knowing what the story is about. So, for example, you have this gentleman, which goes by the name of Ta-Nehisi Coates. Ta-Nehisi Coates, I hope I'm not mispronouncing it. But he used to work at The Atlantic. The Atlantic is a very far-left publication, blatantly communist, openly so. And these are the people that are now recruited to write comic books. They're not recruited to write comic books because they're great artists or great storytellers or they're even interested in the medium or they have a passion for comic books. No, they're recruited because they worked at far-left publications. And I guess the hopes is that if you recruit these people, they can then use their connections from their fellow journalists in order to promote the product. It's kind of bad because I believe word of mouth really works at promoting the product better than anything else. You don't have to resort to these tricks because this is a trick. Like you hire someone that's not really skilled at the job you plan them on doing. And the only reason you're hiring them is so that they can use their connections to shill your product. But like when people buy the product itself, which is mediocre at best, they're going to be turned away from. Now, the problem with hiring far-left activists is that far-left activists are very hateful people. They're cauldrons of bubbling hate. Their entire ideology is dedicated to hating someone else. And normally, you can have a business if you hate the right people. What I mean by this, think of the heavy metal music. Okay, now, if you're a person that sings heavy metal in the 80s, it is kind of okay to hate the moral busybodies. It is kind of okay to hate the people that are attacking your industry by saying that you're singing the devil's music. And the reason is that it kind of unifies the heavy metal community against criticisms from the outside. You know, like you're saying, look, we're just actors, we're just playing music like everyone else, we're not a harm to society, right? So it can work. I mean, gamers and developers alike used to hate Jack Thompson because they viewed as him attacking the gaming community. So if you know your base, if you know the type of people that buy your product, sometimes you can actually merchandise hate towards groups that are trying to destroy the industry from the outside. But what you can't do is merchandise that hate towards your own consumer. Like, that is just ridiculous. And the reason it's ridiculous is because clearly the writer in this case just does like unnecessary levels of hatred towards their own fan base, or at least towards someone that their fan base likes. Because when you look at Jordan Peterson, world-renowned clinical psychologist, and you notice that he's got millions of people following him on YouTube and on social media. He's very popular. And you have to answer, like, who is he popular with? Like, who are the demographic that likes listen to him? And the answer is that young teenage boys are the primary demographic. Now, if you sell comic books, don't you think there's a small overlap between young teenage boys that read comic books and people that listen to Jordan Peterson? So why on earth would you attack Jordan Peterson? Like, why would you do that? Why would you create this unnecessary drama, this unnecessary split and divide within the few members you have left in your community? It makes absolutely no sense from a business standpoint. It's career suicide. Yet, this is the path that Marvel keeps choosing to go with. In their opinion, one of the worst villains of the Marvel universe is a Canadian clinical psychologist. I mean, it's so freaking laughable. And anyone who knows the guy knows that he's not a Nazi. I mean, Jordan Peterson, in my opinion, is the benchmark to find out if someone is a moderate or is an extremist. If you have a person that goes like, oh, well, you know, I don't care about Jordan Peterson, that's fine. But if you have a person that hates Jordan Peterson with passion, then I can't tell if that's a far right or a far leftist, but I know it's a far something. Because Jordan Peterson tries to empower the individual. He tries to convince people that they shouldn't try to change society before they get their own life in order. That's pretty much it. That's what the rules for life are. It's like, hey, you know, first, learn to clean up your room. Like, clean up your act, basically. Like, take personal responsibilities. Try to put your life in order, and then think about the greater whole, the greater society. But the university professors want to tell you, no, you shouldn't clean your room. Your room is messy because of society. Nothing you can do will ever clean your room. What you need to do is to be a good Muppet and go do civil unrest on the street so you can get arrested by the cops. Okay? Go do activism on behalf of our ideology, and maybe you'll be rewarded somehow. We're going to talk about that later. You know, like that's pretty much what they're trying to do. So they don't like someone like Jordan Peterson that tells people, no, like, look, you can get your life in order. Like, all you have to do is to focus on getting your life in order first. And maybe then you can aspire to greater ambitions and greater goals. But that is haram. So that's why they hate him. They hate him because he's taking away their ideological Muppets. He is de-radicalizing people, which is a bad thing. So in this comic book, like you can see, Red Skull is now having the 10 rules for life, which is a direct reference to Jordan Peterson's book. And then there's also another part in the comic where he says that there are weak young men looking for a purpose, Captain America found his purpose in the flag. The detective found his purpose in the badge, and other people have been led astray by the Jordan Peterson self-insert. So, you're reading this, and it's very difficult to take it seriously. But this is not the first time they did it. Having Red Skull use conservative talking points is not a new thing for Marvel. Like, here you have Red Skull talking about how he went to Europe and he saw refugees, millions of them, marching across the continent, bringing their fanatical beliefs and their crime with them. They attack our women and bomb our cities. Now, this was written in a time where you had a terrorist attack per week in the European Union. Like, there was that time, if you guys remember, before Emmanuel Macron started activating and saying things that he is saying things now that would get me banned from YouTube if I said them then. Like, let's just put it like that. I guess like Emmanuel Macron might be the Red Skull in this picture. How do our leaders respond to do they push them back, enforce the borders, and is our sovereign duty? Of course not. They say, here, take our food, take our shelter, take our lives. Despicable. Protecting the land is the responsibility of the leader. Strength, preserving the heritage and culture of the people, offering them opportunity. And now look at the world today. Look here at the dead husk that is the United States, how the mighty have fallen. Who is protected, I ask you? On my flight, I was briefed about these brave patriots fighting the government illegal claims to their land. Who does the land belong to if not the people? This is who your government sees as the transgressors. What about the criminal trespassers who make a mockery of your borders? No, they are protected, of course. But that is only the beginning. Your entire culture is under siege. The principles your country was founded upon is lost in the name of tolerance. Your religion, your beliefs, your sense of community, all tossed aside like trash, and you cannot even speak out against it because you're going to be called a bigot. And who benefits from all of this but the vultures feasting on your carcass, the bankers who stole your homes out of under you, and the politicians they purchased? Holy shit, he starts talking like Bernie Sanders now. Well, let them call you what they will. I know who you truly are. Right? So this is like the writer using a character to push his ideological beliefs in. This is not something like you had with Marvel Civil War, where you had the issue of breaking anonymity. Heroes had to reveal their masks, and some heroes were for this, some were against it. Iron Man was for it. He was part of the business class. Captain America was against it. He was part of the patriotic spirit. And it was up for the reader to decide which one of these issues are right and which ones are wrong. This is just clear-cut propaganda. Like, there is no way they want the reader to make his own mind about what he is reading. It doesn't want the reader to think it's like, okay, well, what is wrong with defending your borders like other countries do it? What is wrong with a nation having a culture? I mean, isn't America a progressive nation? Isn't it worth defending the progressive culture? Apparently not. Apparently Red Skull says it's bad, so therefore, if you want to be good, you have to do the opposite of Red Skull. Yeah, so Jordan Peterson is really shocked about this, and just so you can see the memes that are coming out, you got Red Skull quoting Peterson's 10 rules for life. Don't compare yourself with other people. Compare yourself with who you were yesterday. Basically, like, this is a good standard to improve your life. I mean, yeah, comparing yourself to other people is not so realistic, but like if you try to compare yourself to yesterday, you can see if you're improving or not. No one gets away with anything ever, so take responsibility for your own life. Oh my god, what a fascistic thing to say. And then you have, don't lie about anything ever. Lying leads to hell. Yeah, no, clearly Jordan Peterson is definitely a Nazi. Clearly he deserves to be represented by the Red Skull. Let me know what you guys think, though, and I'll see you in the comment section, and I'll be live streaming right after this. Right after this is over, tune into my live stream channel, because I have a big surprise for you. I'll see you there.